Everybody wants to climb with the best junglers, but then what you do when there's a 1200 LP 61% win rate jungler who's using none of those junglers in the meta, and he is doing it with talent. We will cover his builds, his itemization, his early game strategies, his tendencies and preferences, and then break down 2 games to show you exactly how this all comes together to create one of the most dominant jungle 1v9 packages we have in 2024. So you too can also climb to the rank of your dreams. The most difficult part about using Talon in this capacity is that he is a fraction of the power he once had in the jungle. Riot have nerfed his jungle clear speed. They've made it so that he effectively is not meant to be something that's good in this kind of meta. Yet you see him frequently averaging high KP and 8.5 CS per minute in 200 games. So how exactly is he able to achieve this without a clear modifier and a clear base meta that also relies on ganking and invading? How do you maximize your pressure as a jungler to do what he does while playing everything else? But if you need help applying that more directly, you absolutely must head to Virkayu.gg. Not only do I have a free jungle improvement resource, I also have a dedicated program with jungle video courses, jungle coaching, coaching classes, a jungle VOD library, special weekly content you'll see nowhere else. All of this available through a premium jungle Discord, which is highly active, a huge community that help each other climb using my jungle program and courses. As we have seen by everybody hitting their peak rank goals in Split 1 and Split 2 of Season 14 as fast as possible. So to climb faster than everybody you know and to jungle diff every game you play, head to Virkayu.gg or click the link in the description below. And just a quick blitz of the abilities in case you don't know. The passive he has is a bleed passive of 3 stack 1, so once you pull that, they will have damage over time. The Q is a dash with damage. When the target dies, if you use a spell on them, he will heal and get a 50% reduction on the cooldown. It is also an auto attack reset. The W does damage in a cone, he throws it out and it comes back. It will slow targets that get hit on the way back, so you want to use this properly. E is the Assassin's Creed. You can go Ezio across all the map. Obviously, there are timers on using the same walls and things like that, but this is where his mobility comes from. And his ultimate is where he throws his blades out, goes invisible, he can reposition, he gains movement speed, does a hell of a lot of damage, and upon completion, it does drag the blades, which again do damage on both costs, outward and inward, much like W. We're gonna look at absolutely everything in this video, and we will begin with the builds as well as the runes. First up, his standard rune page is as follows. You see the Conqueror there, and you don't see haste, you do not see cut down. What you see is alacrity and last stand. That's because the way he plays, as we'll showcase in a second, happens to be reasonably aggressive, but also very intelligent. He knows that he can make certain trades, and when he gets low, he gets that amplification from last stand. He also doesn't need cut down to kill them. In addition, because your Q is on a reasonably low cooldown, you don't need much, but you might as well maximize your DPS and burst in between those procs. What's curious is that against specifically squishy champions, he will go a Hail of Blades rune page for the same kind of logic, just maximizing that DPS where they potentially have a lot of damage to CC and kill him. Think about your brands, for example. Against such champions that have, range spacing against a Talon, it also means you're going to need your ultimate a little bit more, repositioning all-ins, and of course, annihilation of the enemy champion. When he needs to use the Ignite on his early trades, in his ganks, in his fights, in his invades, you're gonna see he takes the Ignite. That's because, well, they have sustain, and you want to get through that sustain as quickly as possible. If he just needs to flash to reposition, he'll take that instead, especially if Ignite has less value. For items, we keep it relatively simple. Ghostblade Rush most of the time, over 80% of the time in fact, because you want that map mobility and that high damage PvP potential. Again, Talon is not going to be an AFK farming champion, but he can lead into that as soon as the camps start to become rinsable. By that I mean second we go Profane Hydra. Why? Because now we've used our PvP component to, invade and gank and get fed, and now the camps need to be cleaned up quite quickly. We also need to be able to clean up the enemy's camps, and in the late to early and mid game when those camps have really the maximum HP, you want to be able to rinse them and macro your way to a quick victory. This is a champion that's not going to look to go 35, but he wants to control the tempo and end within the 20s. Now here's where we have a bit of flexibility. We usually go Edge of Night to withstand CC, especially when you want to dive into the enemy comp and your teammates are useless. You could also go Cerulda's Grudge for a fast armor penetration snowball and slow utility. And if you are against a comp where you need your ultimate a bit more, he has been seen to go a little bit at that Axiom arc. All of that is much more a new development. And finally, you can obviously go with the Black Cleaver against your higher HP tanker compositions where you might need a bit of HP yourself, a bit of slow utility, and of course, AD HP and armor shred. And the haste isn't bad either. So how exactly does he take these runes and builds, and why does he need them to be so specific in terms of Conqueror, Hail of Blades, and then flexing that third and fourth item in his builds. Well, that's because as we go over his early clear strategies, he loves to start Raptors into a red and then he goes invading at level 2. That's because, as we know, Talon has that map mobility with his E, and the map mobility with the E is a little bit, cheesy for the rest of us, but a good Talon knows how to use it to the max, and bad Talon just kind of ease things going parkour singing Skater Boy. If the enemy champion is particularly weak, he would like to go starting Raptors into invade if the enemy jungler is, say, your Zyras or full clear mages that really don't know how to reverse clear, they haven't watched my Zyra guide, and they just have no idea what they're doing. So Talon will say, I'm gonna take my Raptors and then cheese you. And then they freak out and die. If he is, however, against a stronger early game jungler, think about your Rek'Sais and things like that, then he will start his Raptors, clear the entire red side, and flex the next decision making. He wants to see where the enemy jungler begins and what they happen to do. If he is the one being invaded, for example, he will give up the camps and clear his quadrants. He's happy to let the game come to him and not overtly force these invade plays. Yeah, it's really the psychopathic way of playing Talon. Hey, I'm stronger than you. I've set up my runes to be stronger than you. I'm going to rush Ghostblade to continue to be stronger than you. However, if you happen to be pathing correctly, if you happen to be stronger than me potentially, I will retract, sit back, full clear more normally, and react. If you gank and you leave counter jungling moments, I'm gonna take that. You gank and I can rotate and cut you off, I'm gonna do that too. For example, you see here he notices the enemy jungler has blue buff and ganks mid lane, as you do when you're a Shaco. So given the side of the map that he is on, he also notices that the jungler wants to take the top scuttle. Always track the pathing to see where they go next and extrapolate. So this means he goes to the enemy jungler's red side to steal as much as he can, and then he falls back to his own camps to protect them from being counter jungled as well. The mobility is only as good as how good your jungle brain is. And here's the nutcracker about this strategy. What I tell a lot of people to do once they get gold and platinum is to get used to the idea of jungle denial. Counter gank them, steal their camps, prevent them from being on the map freely. What this also does is if your lanes suck, then they're not going to die to random ganks and terrible jungling because enemy junglers simply cannot exist. You take away that problem, you'll notice your laners win or go neutral significantly more times than they do not. This Talon has reached this win rate in this LP with exactly that kind of strategy to the next level. If he has 0% KP, that's fine, but he will suffocate the enemy jungler. He will get to the point where he's 1 to 2 levels above, and then he can simply contest everything, except it's not a contest because he's just winning them. They're not coin flip fights anymore. He has made the enemy jungler weak intentionally, slowly starved and suffocated them, and now you can just blow, they fall down, you get free stuff. And this is all especially true because the enemy jungler will now become desperate and they will coin flip more, and again, as I just said, it's not a coin flip for the Talon. It's all about maximizing that early game. Now in general, his back strategy to keep up tempo is he would like to back after he has about 1k gold in the inventory to have an item advantage against junglers he is already taking control over. Even last night I coached the D2 Bel'Veth, and this guy's having a pretty solid game, decent KDA, decent oppression, but then stays out 2 times longer than he should, and he could have afforded to buy Kraken, he could have afforded to buy other components that would have meant the next plays are really easy to execute. Why? Because he's got the gold spent. It's realized the experience lead is there. But if you don't base, you still have 2 to 3k gold, you don't have the gold lead, now the coin flip from the enemy jungler is less of a coin flip, and you actually end up throwing your leads. All that being said is that jungle denial is rule number 1. That is a goal for us, but we do like to play around lanes that have this ganking potential. That's what he focuses on. If there are no lanes with great ganking potential, he understands lane matchups and lane states, but here's where most people get ganking wrong. It's not necessarily about the kills and just the flashes and things like that. If you can go to an ungankable lane as a Talon with a great angle of approach from denying the enemy jungler, then you can take away enough HP, enough mana, enough resources, giving away the lane to your laner to control. And you obviously have to trust them to do that, but most of the time, if you give your laners unfair advantages, they will run away with them in most MMR ranges. However, if said lanes do not really pop off in the right way or they just don't take too much time, yeah, the focus then is if you have decent lanes and you are a great jungler like Talon and you play champion like Talon, get in the enemy jungler's face and prevent them from making your winning lanes losing lanes. In essence, give nothing away for free, never give up map pressure to the enemy jungler, always keep dominating. And to showcase how to do this, we will go over to see how all of this looks in practice and how you too can copy this style, yes with Talon, but also with any other aggressive jungler to dominate, climb, and win. For the first game here, we're going to look at what we do when we have quadrant pressure and we can deny the enemy jungler anything that they want to do. You'll see the Talon start on the Raptors into the red and the Krugs, and obviously in the second second game, we'll have a look at more, okay, what if you can't invade a squishy brand? What if you can't counter jungle and steal the blue away from a Xin Zhao who you saw start on the top side? How do you then get fed in those games? So that'll be the second one. For now though, as you can see, because we know the enemy jungler starts on the top side, we can then go ahead and steal the blue. We don't try and do blue and grub. We don't try and take the whole quadrant. We know that Xin Zhao, Jarvans, and these champions were not going to be able to kill very quickly when bottom lane will be able to rotate and collapse in on us. So we use this pressure to say, let's take the blue and gank the bottom lane. And there's a very important concept behind this. The enemy jungler knows that you started on the bottom side, but doesn't know that you took his blue. By the time the Talon actually shows up on the bottom lane, the enemy jungler's already on Wolves, already on Grump, already on that side and cannot vertical jungle you. If you show too quickly, then they will be able to counter jungle you. In this particular case, amazing execution, obviously using that E to go through the river and avoid all detection of a potential wards. And you would have noticed he started off with the scanner, and now when he goes back to base, he rebuys a warding totem. This is where the genius unfolds of Talon jungle if you execute correctly. We're now gonna go to our top side. We have the top quadrant with the Scuttle Crab available. The Xin Zhao's forced to be on the bottom side with no blue and no bottom lane to gank. Sylas moves on down with the prior he has, and we know we're gonna lose our Raptors upon respawn. There are some junglers that might tell you Raptor stats are bad because you're gonna lose your Raptors at level 4. You telling me it's bad to steal his blue, gank his bottom lane, remove his PvP component, and then while he does my Raptors, I go ahead and take his and the Krugs? You telling me that's not a worthy trade? Because that sounds like a worthy trade to me. Especially when the enemy jungler is going to be forced into an aggressive play. Like I said, the whole idea behind this jungle denial, getting in his face, being oppressive, is that they will feel compelled to do something they don't really want to do just to make a play, and that's when they die into turret. And as you would have noticed, when the Talon does the Raptors and the Krugs, we leave a ward there. That's why we exchange the warding totem, because we want to be able to now make the best play for the map. If the Xin Zhao goes top side and we can counter gank him, we'll do that. If he goes to the bottom side and we can do our top quadrant, we will do that. Now here is where you have to make a decision. Eventually, the enemy jungler is going to have a window to go ahead and gank a bottom lane, gank a mid lane. You can try and match that as Talon and counter gank it, again, denial of his ganking action, or if you have a dive in the top lane, go ahead and dive the top lane. Now at this point, you know the Xin Zhao is going to gank bottom lane and they should respect this, but they don't and therefore they die. But you look at the CS and all of a sudden Talon's at 44 CS, going to grubs, gonna get 6 on them, 201 KDA versus a Xin Zhao 28 CS that's going to be forced to go ahead and take the Talon's Krugs. Again, do you really care that he's going to take your Krugs when you're getting so much more than him? It's about misleading, the carrot on the stick. Now at this stage, against weaker junglers, yeah, you can, after the grubs, really get on their face. You got this red Dirk, yeah, he's sitting on a lot of gold, but this Dirk spike is enough. And if you expect the enemy jungler to be taking your bottom side quadrant again, and you see the enemy mid laner go down to deal with your bottom lane, if they're inting, if they're doing stupid things, all you can do is deny and map control as much as possible. And that's why we love the alacrity in the rune set there, because it's not only great for the downtime between your 7-second CDRQ, it also allows you to clear a lot faster in the objectives and the camps because of those nerfs to the jungle modifiers, you know, many times over 3 years. The enemy jungler is now constrained to the bottom side quadrant. We can go back to base, you buy the Ghost Blade, get on the map, use your ultimate now. You want to make sure the spike is realized. And the Sylas will learn that very, very quickly, which he does. Here's the thing about the way we play this game, the way that I kind of coach it and the way that the Talon plays it. Yeah, you're gonna sacrifice a lane at the end of the day. Sometimes it's gonna happen. The enemy jungler will gank because he has nothing else to do. It's simply important that you always get more than he does. So after the gank, you shove the wave, you hit some plays. Use your grubs for the good of your gold income. Remember, Talon is the epitome of, look, I'm gonna have more gold than you, more experience than you, and I'm gonna call the shots. And because I got my E-mobility, my bleed tick damage, and a lot of burst, what are you gonna do about it? And as always with this concept, ensure you fall back from the mid lane shove to the scuttle to your blue side quadrant. You are always cycling your camps, cycling their camps, always flowing, never stopping, econ, econ, econ. And a guy that isn't meant to be farming, doesn't even have Profane Hydra yet, is up 30 CS because the enemy jungler is reacting permanently, and all he's getting is a few little scraps while not getting much else. And as you see again, Xin Zhao is ganking, he kills the bottom lane. But who really cares? Because you have the grubs, you take his raptors, you can go top lane and kill that again, you're forced to TP from the Sylas. Have you noticed how we started off with a high pressure denial of a camp, an invade or something like that? We take away all of the enemy jungler's options and hope to actually play the game. Then we counter jungle him and force him to sit on one side of the map. While we rinse camps, take objectives and, gank whenever it's possible, he is forced into that spam ganking, and yes, he's gonna get a little bit of gold and the enemy bot lane will be fed, but you're Talon, you're an assassin. You don't care about those things. And to close out this early game, before we talk about the next one and then I'll give you some tips on the mid game, you see the Talon is relaxed. He lets the game come to him. The Orianna, not doing so good. The ADC Yasuo, the support, These are people who are really struggling to play the game. What happens is you absolutely take camps, you swoop side to side, you hold turrets, you hold waves, you look for that moment to pounce on an unsuspecting victim, which happens to be the enemy jungler who's now gonna be down 2 levels to you. You kill him, you fall back to your quadrant again, the dragon is spawning thusly, which means you'll be able to secure that, and you're looking at a guy that's got a 2,000 gold lead, over 2,000 gold lead over the enemy jungler. He has put the carry pants on himself and sacrificed laners for the good of his own gold econ. Now, let's go ahead and just take a quick look at what happens when we don't get these freebie early ganks and these strategic kills, and we have to be a bit more farmy early, and then we'll jump back to this game to talk about the mid game, about how you carry 4 corpses to victory. You do the same clear all the way down, and then instead of actually invading and stealing the blue and ganking bottom lane, here we just go full clearing up. Because the Jarvan cleared away the vision, we don't categorically know exactly what he did. We also look at a bottom lane, and they have a lot lower HP than you probably would want in order to go ahead and gank it. So you go for the full clear. Now you see the Jarvan on a ward, he's got 20 CS, you know he's going to be thinking about warding and stealing away your respawned raptors. You see your Vex is kind of low. You go mid lane as a Talon, you shove out the way for your Vex so she can recall. This is so you don't give a free kill to the Jarvan. Too many times junglers do not see this. You take the top scuttler, you go back to base, you buy your serrated Dirk. Nice. The next idea is to, of course, do your Krugs, potentially gank bottom lane, go back to the top side and continue your sequencing. As always, F key, look for ganks, look for ganks, look for ganks. If you can get them, play around the gankable lanes, do it. Then, shove the wave, get more experience, fall back to your Krugs. You can already see the Jarvan trying a bit too hard to try and get ganks off and fights off, and the Talon's just got this amazing clear baseline, controlling camps, shoving waves, and only showing up when there's a great opportunity for a gank. Otherwise, he's map controlling, denying, and playing you against yourself. In this case, that obviously leads us to level 6, 630, and free grubs. Because the Jarvan started top side, path to the bottom side, show top side again, you know he's gonna be on the other side of the map, which opens us up the grubs, and of course, tier 3 counter jungling. That means a third respawn of those top side camps. Juicy fresh. Once more, what this means is you're gonna sell your bottom lane out to the enemy jungler because they know that you are on the top side. They know that you took the grubs. They know that you are eating away their experience. However, as long as you play around your 6 and gank the mid lane there and get that kill, the Jarvan again forced into desperation. As we saw in the first game here, the Talon would fall back to his camps and just keep cycling and farming away, only rotating when necessary. In this case, we have low HP bottom laners. The Talon says, let me try and kill one of you, which he does. And a lot of the same gameplay patterns take over, controlling a quadrant and deciding, do I counter jungle or do I cut them off? The focus is, of course, on the 6 grubs and using those to shove waves, get plates, snowball the hubris in this case, although most of the time we do go ghost blade. Just wanted to show you a little bit of a difference. This is how we play a measured, high farming baseline while still being hyperactive. And yes, the Talon kit allows me to do this, but a lot of junglers are able to actually play this way if you understand jungle pressure points, because it's about, can I invade and kill you on your first clear? Can I not do that so I can maybe just take camps away and take away the ganks you want? Or do I have to let you full clear? I will full clear, but I will know when I can counter jungle you and take stuff away and counter gank, and you will feel a little bit desperate because you have no idea what I'm doing as a Talon. Now let's quickly go have a look at the mid-game approaches, just a quick summary. So as we join back to the corpse game, we'll see that we have finished the Profane Hydra, we have the Ghost Blade, we got the Dragon. All you're seeing is a guy that is letting the game come to him, and he is relaxed, he knows he is fed. You take your camps, you use your immobility to swoop around side to side, even if the map is dark and full of terrors. You look for the picks on the sidelines, you try and get them if you can. All you're doing is you're ensuring your jungle is under your control. You're waiting for someone to be impatient and misposition, and because you are the only fed person on the team, that's when you have to pull the trigger. It didn't matter that your Asura had 6 deaths if your Gragas was 0-7. You got Profane, you got the 50% damage spike, you got your W rake, you've got your Q gap close, you got your mobility, you got your ultimate, you got Ignite. You are now at a 2-item spike, nobody else can match you, and you kill the squishies. When you do that, the gold lead now swings in your team's favor, and absolutely standard mid-game macro will come into play, except what Talon provides when you're this level of fed is the option to do absolutely everything. Some champions are better at split pushing, some champions are better at just swooping and clearing and looking for team fights, others are better at trapping and, you know, making sure you don't actually get econ because you are just the Amumu or the Sejuani, or you're Talon and you're fed and you do absolutely all 3 of those things. You control your camps, you control the heralds, you push waves out that need to be pushed out, and why can you do this? Because of your E-Parkour mobility. You can be in and out of scenarios, you can fall back to camps with your Profane, And whenever you see a fight that is something you can dominate, that opportunity to jump in. If you are busy farming and you're not pathing towards your team where this action is happening, you will lose. This Talon knows when to push waves and when to rotate for the cleanup, quadra-kill, pentakill fight, whatever it may be, into a Baron, into a win. Now yeah, that's a little bit sped up because that's exactly what it is. If you want to win games early, you've got to be thinking at that speed in game. But if you want a more direct approach on how to play the early game into the mid game into winning for your specific MMR, then the video on your screen now will do the juice.